Jito has launched their new token, JTO, their governance token for their ecosystem. As you may already know, and hopefully you do know, Jito is like an MEV client, MEV masters on the Solana blockchain. And this is something I'm very, very bullish for. I am the GM of validator.com, and at validator.com, we do use the Jito client. Now, you probably will know that from other videos, so I'll just kind of dive into the actual JTO token. It's 2:20 in the morning here, so I'm a little bit tired, and I'm just going to try and blast this to you quickly. So essentially, I had a video that went out a little while ago, and in my thesis, I thought the price would be around $1. That was what was commonly expected, $1, and it's now over $3. So a lot of people have kind of wrecked themselves, not from taking profit, but just from a few errors on chain. So let me just go through those quickly. Firstly, if you have some Jito to claim, just go to jito.network/airdrop and then check your eligibility, and then you can claim your token. You've got 547 days left to claim. After that, I'm guessing you forego it. Now, the most amount of liquidity was on Coinbase. Now, you can't exactly see it on this little wee graph, but the token actually came out at around $6. It came on down, found a kind of nice point around $1.86, went up to $2.30, went back down to like $1.65 or so, and then it's just been shooting up and shooting up. So anyone that sold at $1.65 or bought, if they sold now, they're already on a 2x, which is pretty incredible. And of course, launching at $5 initially, well, that's, whatever. Exactly, who's going to buy it at that point? You'd normally want to let the market kind of settle. That could have only been just a couple of traders. Now, I want to just show you this here. This is called middle curving it. So if you take this bell curve here, you'll find bell curves throughout everything in society. So the majority of people's heights will be in the middle, the majority of the percentage. Hopefully I don't have to explain this to you, you know what it is. But so as an example though, in case you're new, maybe a 5'9" to 5'10" person, most people would have that, most men might have that height. Then you go, 6'2" and then 6'3" and then 6'5" or whatever. It's like that. Down here, these would be your 4-footers as an example. And in crypto, this meme's quite popular and it makes a lot of sense. Basically, people in the middle curve will say something like this, and I've done it myself and I did it earlier. $1 for that token? No, that's not worth it. That kind of viewpoint, not understanding that there's going to be people over here that are just going, oh, it's only $1. I'll buy 100. And then there's the giga brains that they actually do have a plan. This is not a good example of that, but they can basically see this person's viewpoint, and then form their own viewpoint. Whereas this person here, this is the common person that will just be like most of us actually in the world. But I'm digressing. My point is, middle curving it is dangerous. So you will middle curve more often than not. Just try and spot the other viewpoints. Just get better and better at that. A better example would be this, because I don't really like it when people show this example. I don't have a plan. The same thing. These two individuals, they do not think the same. It's more like this. You need to analyze the fundamentals. Cute dog mascot, I buy coin. And then this person can see this viewpoint, as I mentioned. A rational analysis of irrational processes is bound to fail. There's so much going for Jito that middle curving it is fine. But if the price goes higher, you might start to middle curve hard. Just look at these viewpoints. Not financial advice, of course. Now, this is on birdeye.so, and I just want to point out that early on, so this is like 10 minutes or so after trading kind of started, about 4:09 p.m. UTC time, so like 11:10 Eastern time, some people were starting to buy this at $5 a token. And maybe that's the same time that it kind of peaked on Coinbase. I don't know, but the issue is like there's all these different places where you can buy, and people bought this at a crazy price, even though if we kind of go back, ignore this $25,000 one. I think there's a mistake there, but people were buying it for like $2. And then if you go back before, $2.50 as an example, and then all of a sudden you get these buy orders at $5. And then straight after that, you get sell orders at like $1, and then 90 cents, and then 74 cents, all within, in some cases, the same minute. And this is because there's different sources of liquidity, and people don't know, they're not checking all these sources. They're too willing just to click the button. Maybe they're doing it via Phantom, maybe they're doing it via Jupiter and just not looking. I mean, there's hundreds of thousands of transactions going through a second. So if you went and bought it for $5 and you put in this amount of money, a minute later, you've just lost 80% of your money. So I'm just going to show you 2 of these transactions. Here's an example of one at 16:04 and 10 seconds. So $11,000 buying this many Jito, basically $5. And then this one here, this is a couple of minutes after. But now if we have a look, this is 10,000. So USDT leaving and then buying 10,000 Jito tokens. So buying it at $1. That's just kind of the difference. So most people would probably be using Jupiter, and I love Jupiter. What you need to do though is you need to just understand a few things about pushing through your transaction, and also just be very, very aware of the fact that, there are bots spamming tens or hundreds of thousands of transactions. The great thing is the blockchain is still running. That's all good, but you just got to be aware of the price that you're getting. And it will warn you. It will warn you versus the CoinGecko rate via an API. So if we have a look here, very simple. We'll just go, 500 JTO token into SOL. We see the price just so we can see it very easy. We'll just do 1 token, $2.90 at present. If your transaction is failing, you can increase the slippage, and you can also create custom. Now, if someone's doing like 50% slippage, an R bot can get in there and they can front run you, and they will take so much of your gains. So that's dangerous. Maybe during these times, 1%, but the other thing you can do is you can set a transaction priority. So this is where you're literally paying the Jito clients, Jito validators, to try and get your transaction into the block, but at an earlier stage. So you're tipping in order to get there. At the moment, you can only do 0.01 SOL as a tip, so we can't actually increase it. However, hopefully they increase it in the future, but 0.1 as an example. And you pay that fee in order to get your transaction through faster. But the biggest thing is, I was trying myself, and I tried to do some trades, and then I was just noticing that the price was like 80 cents or something like that. And as opposed to just keep on clicking, I then went and checked Coinbase, where it was like $1.70. And then I went and sold some on Coinbase. So just remember, there's so many different sources where you can buy and sell. And if you're going to want to buy or sell at a particular price, try and track the price. Hopefully there is a centralized exchange that can kind of give you a base level of a price, just so you don't go get wrecked and lose a lot of your value. So OpenBook is a fork of Serum, and Serum was like the first kind of on-chain decentralized exchange on Solana a few years ago. It was connected to FTX, so in the end, it was forked and they created OpenBook. Now OpenBook is kind of like, it's all back-end, and then what happens is there's an app, or there's different apps and with a UI that jump on top of it. So we're just going to quickly have a look at Drift, because I do like Drift, but you can go and connect to Drift, and then they have perps, which most of you will see. We'll cover that in another tutorial. And we have the spot market. So if you go to the spot market, you can go to JTO and USD, and then you've got the order book over here. Now this would have been moving so fast for sure, but at least you can see, what the bids are. There's not what we'd call a lot of depth here, and there's actually a decent amount of spread. So $3 to $2.88, that's massive. So there's not a lot of people actually putting in orders on the order book. Now this here will be the same because it's all in the back end if we compare this to Mango Markets. So this is Mango Markets here. And Mango Markets is once again tapping into the back end of OpenBook. People can still put on their trades and it all goes into the back end. It's just a different UI. You can still see what the spread is. So it's a little bit higher. And if this just went through really, really fast, then of course you're not going to be able to get your bid in, but at the least, you can push it through if you want to. You can set an order, you can set a sell zone, you can do what you like. You shouldn't be wrecked. The other option, of course, is to use Phoenix. So this is phoenix.trade. Once again, I'll cover this in another tutorial coming up soon, but this is it here. So Phoenix has better liquidity. I had a big brain tell me all about it, but it's 2:30 in the morning and I can't remember exactly what it is, but I'm very excited for Phoenix. And also Jupiter can tap into Phoenix. However, when there's that many transactions going through and Jupiter's trying to get you the best prices and there's 200,000 transactions going through, you have to double check. You have to take responsibility for yourself and your tokens, and you need to make sure you're getting the best price. So very simple, just go and open a couple of tabs and find where the prices are. If in doubt, go to CoinGecko and just try from there. Now, I do want to talk about actually going in and doing some liquidity farming. At the moment, Camino Finance is under quite a bit of stress, and I'm very bullish on Camino Finance, and I'll be covering them quite a bit. So I'm not going to cover Camino Finance right now, maybe tomorrow though. What you need to know though is the importance of impermanent loss. So this is a calculator. This is not going to be completely correct because sometimes you have two assets in a liquidity pool. So it's like, let's say 50% over here is JitoSOL and 50% is JTO, the governance token. And as people buy and sell, this will change its weight. So, if a lot of people are buying JTO, as an example, the JTO weight will go down. It might go down to like 30%, and you'll have a lot more JitoSOL, let's say 70%. And that is what is called impermanent loss. So we're just going to pretend, as an example, that this kind of happened. There'll be ways to model it and things like that, but I don't actually know how to kind of model it. So let's say the price for asset number 1, which we'll call JTO, went up 90%, which it actually did. And let's say the asset price for JitoSOL went up 1%. Maybe it did, maybe it didn't. It doesn't matter. That if the weight was the same, which it wouldn't be, we would have impermanent loss of almost 5%. So in one day, we would have lost effectively 5% of our portfolio, or 4.792% of our portfolio, compared to if we were just holding those two tokens separately. So that's with this weightage here. If we were to change this weightage to something like 30% of this token and 70% of this token, it would be slightly less. However, I'm pretty sure most people were putting in pretty close to 50-50 when they first went into the liquidity pool. So that kind of loss is pretty high, right? Well, one thing though is the gains are pretty high. So this is the JTO and JitoSOL liquidity pool. It's over its max cap. I couldn't get in, even though I wanted to do a tutorial. They said no, but maybe later there'll be some more cap. So if you're using 5% due to the fact that the price has gone up crazy, that's not good. However, at 23,000% as an APY, that's very juicy. So in other words, you're currently earning more than what you're losing. Now, this particular pool is locked for 30 days and 2 hours. So whatever you put in here, it needs to stay here for this amount of time. You cannot unlock it. And you can see the asset ratio down here. The position range is very, very broad. So even if it was selling for $4 or $5, you could get wrecked by impermanent loss. But if the amount of the APY was sustained and high, then you should be pretty safe. Not financial advice. I can't calculate this, especially not right now at this time. But if this remained quite high, it will offset it. It just will. And the amount of volume going through this on-chain DEX is insane. Alternatively, of course, you can go to Orca. I do prefer to use Camino though, but I just want to show you what the 24-hour yield is for some of these pools. So if we have a look here, the actual return in one day was 82%. Now, I do not fully understand this math, to be perfectly honest. I imagine you can work it out. I've got liquidity of 2.2 million. 24-hour fees is $305,000, and that's just over 10% of this total amount. However, not all of this liquidity would have be in the actual range that they're trading. Nevertheless, whatever this is, if it's 82% or what, there are also extra Jito rewards of 240,000 per week in this pool, Jito and USDC. And over here, there's no rewards, but it's a lower fee rate. So there's less liquidity, but it's earning more fees, relative, I guess. And then over here with this one, JTO and JitoSOL, this is getting some juicy rewards here as well. I believe I spoke to someone in Camino and he said his pool got about 30% in rewards. So impermanent loss of 5% and at the same time, 30% in rewards. So it's a sizable thing. It's certainly something that you can look into if you know the farming space. Otherwise, wait for a video of mine to come out, but just be super, super aware of all of the risks. Finally, if you just go to jito.network, you can just click View JTO DeFi Opportunities, and we'll see some of them in this DeFi guide right here. So they mentioned if the DApp was audited. I've covered that in another video, which will be linked below. But yes, Camino Finance was audited. However, the TVL cap needs to be increased. You can also do Orca, as mentioned, audited, and Radium audited. So the most amount of TVL is here. Then there's a decent amount on Orca, and then there's some on Radium as well. There are other things that you can do as well. However, you're not getting JTO rewards, so it's not going to have the same amount. I don't have any predictions on the price, and I don't have any real predictions on how crazy this APY will last. But at the moment, there's very decent rewards going in the form of more JTO to the farmers, so I am keen to do a little bit of farming myself. But what about you? Well, it's up to you. Thanks for watching, stay curious, and we'll catch you in the next video.